What's going on, people? You're listening to the Introverted Nerd Watches. I am your beautiful host, Reese. And I'm back for more Fear the Walking Dead. This week I watched season 4, episode 11, The Code. So, this was an episode of Fear the Walking Dead. Oh my God, you guys. I didn't love this episode. I'm a little bored with this show right now. I don't know what's going on. It kind of feels like a bad retread of season 4 of The Walking Dead, which I think was a high point of that show. And that is not what is happening on this show right now. But before I get into any of that, you should subscribe to the podcast. I'm probably not doing a good job of selling it because of how much I am like sighing and complaining right now. But this is a fun podcast. I like to laugh and joke a lot. So subscribe to the podcast and listen to me do that. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher. I'm also on iHeartRadio and Spotify. And if you're an Android girl like myself, you can listen on Castbox, the way that I listen to all of my podcasts. Or not my podcast, but the podcast that I listen to. So I'm available everywhere. Go to those places, scatter to the wind, subscribe, leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because that would just be a sweet thing to do. And I don't know. Let's get into this episode, The Code. Okay, so it's episode 11. How many? There are 7 episodes left? God damn. It's just okay. So this was a Morgan episode. Last week was Alicia with, mostly Alicia was your main dish with a little side of Charlie. This week was Morgan. And they're doing it. They're doing the back half of The Walking Dead season 4. After the prison fell, all of the groups were, scattered all over the place. And it's just, if you're going to do that, you better be damn good. Because while season 4 of The Walking Dead had its problems, this is just, I think that back half was really good. That back half of season 4 of The Walking Dead, you had the Grove, you had the episode where Carl ate all the pudding. We're going to forget about Still with Daryl and Beth. We're going to pretend that abomination never happened. But it was just so good. Well, mostly good, leading up to Terminus. That was some real good Walking Dead stuff. That was like top tier Walking Dead stuff. So to have this Fear the Walking Dead, and have it be so obviously like what was happening on The Walking Dead at that time, there was almost no way that this could win. But I just don't think they should have even attempted it. This was not a good idea for how to do things. And I wonder how much input Scott Gimple had into the way things are going right now. Morgan is, I really like Lenny James. He is such a great actor. I don't know what he's doing here still. I don't know. He's just been sort of, I was reading something, what was it, last week, I think, or maybe I heard it on another podcast, I forget. But they were saying the real reason why Morgan is on Fear the Walking Dead, and part of it, well, one of the main things, or the main thing, was that Scott Gimple didn't think that he could tell Morgan's story would get told on The Walking Dead the way that it needed to be told. And this is Lenny James telling us that, he, The Walking Dead has a much bigger cast. So, he obviously wouldn't get as much story time as he will or as he could on this show. But maybe I just don't want to see what Scott Gimple wanted to do, because what this is right now is not working for me. I think this episode was kind of funny in a really almost slapsticky kind of way. It was really corny jokes. We meet new characters. Who is it? Sarah and Wendell and Jim. And there was a lot of like silly jokes about, Wendell asks Jim if he's ever been called Jimbo. And there's a little, he does a little bit about how, Jim is like, no, my name is Jim. I've never gone by Jimbo. And Wendell tells him, maybe you should try it sometime. And it's like, that's the whole jokey thing they have going on. I should say that Wendell is played by Daryl Chill Mitchell, and he's a comedian. He's in a wheelchair, actually, in real life. So good for Fear the Walking Dead for hiring a person that's actually in the wheelchair to play, their wheelchair bound person, a differently able person. So that's a good thing. And it's always nice, to me, for there to be more Black characters on the cast. But if we're going to have Wendell on the show, if we're going to have Daryl Chill Mitchell on the show, I need somebody to explain to me how he's survived this long in a wheelchair. While it's, nice to see this, to see, all different kinds of people in the apocalypse. I mean, I don't want to be insensitive, but I don't think it is being insensitive to say that people who have disabilities will have a much harder time surviving. So, especially someone in a wheelchair who can't, obviously you need to be able to move quickly. So he could be impeded by just the ground. Like if there are rocks and stuff on the ground, he is in a lot of trouble. If they're in, like, he is so dependent on the people around him. And obviously he has a person with him. He's with his partner in all of this is Sarah. And Sarah. Like they're like two hillbillies and they're kind of ridiculous characters. I should also say that Daryl Chill Mitchell is a comedian. He was I forget which show I remember him from, but he's been in some other stuff. Before he was in the wheelchair. I remember him from some other stuff, but I can't remember off the top of my head, and I'm not going to look it up right now. But I do remember him from other stuff before he had his accident. And so, they spend a lot of the episode, these two, Wendell and the woman's name is Sarah. They spend a lot of the episode sort of making jokes they call they call Morgan, or she calls Morgan Momo, which I'm not gonna lie, that cracked me up when she first said it. Morgan is on the radio, and he's talking, and she's like, he calls for them, and she's like, "Hey, Momo, what's up?" And I'm like, "What?" And Morgan does the same thing. Morgan is so serious that it was kind of funny to see him interact with them because they're so not serious that I did laugh at it. So there were funny parts to this episode, but it was kind of blah to me. I was just like, what? I don't hate any of these people, but I'm not really that interested in them. Wendell is probably the most interesting because I want to know how he survived, and I want to know how everybody else is going to feel about having someone that is really, he's a liability. I really need to know now that he's here. I really need to know how he survived all of this time in the apocalypse. They're like 3 years in at this point, I think, with the time jump, and they were at the stadium for a year, maybe at least 3 years, probably. Or they're running parallel with The Walking Dead right now, right? So they're probably more like 4 years in. I don't know. They don't really explain everything that well on this show, so who the hell knows how long it's been, because you can't tell by people's ages. You could usually tell by the children, but Carl and Judith age. One ages in warp speed, one doesn't age at all, so who knows how long it's been. So the episode starts, we basically go back, because I think they're going to do this with everybody we see at this point. We go back to the point where Alicia left Morgan, and he's in the he's left in the rain by himself. He's looking for shelter, and he sees a semi truck. He gets in the back of it. It's a truck that's completely filled with blankets and MREs and protein bars, just completely stocked full of supplies. It's like Morgan experience with Michonne and Rick's experienced on in season was it season 7 of the main show, where they find that school that has all of the all the supplies that they suddenly need. That's what Morgan finds in this semi truck, and he stays in there. He falls asleep in there, and when he wakes up, he gets out of the truck and he wakes up in a Mississippi truck stop. That was my first problem. I'm like, okay. And I actually looked this up because I was like, I needed to know how far he rode in this truck without waking up before I could even move on. So he's at a Mississippi truck stop. I don't know where in Mississippi. It doesn't really matter. But I looked on MapQuest. It says that from Houston, Texas, I'm assuming that they were in Houston, but from Houston, Texas to Mississippi is a 7-hour ride or a 7-hour drive, and it is 489 miles. So Morgan sleeps that like deeply and heavily in the apocalypse. In the Z-Poc, Morgan sleeps like he's fucking dead. No, I do not believe that he rode 7 hours, almost 500 miles on a truck in the back of a semi truck, and they didn't hit a bump in the road. Like nothing happened that woke Morgan up. Like what the fuck was in those MREs that he just didn't, that he wasn't jostled awake at all. So, but whatever. He's at the truck stop. There's like a Quickie Mart place that's also fully stocked with food and supplies. He goes in. When he goes inside, there's a woman on the radio asking for someone named Polar Bear. So they have code names over this radio. And when Morgan starts talking to her, first of all, he's telling her, he's asking her, he's telling her he needs help. Basically, he needs to get back to where he was. He accidentally got on one of her trucks. And when he tells her that he's in Mississippi, the woman says, "Sweet syrup on a short stack." Like, gee jolly willikers, she's surprised. I was really done when she said that, because I was like, that wasn't even funny. I think that was supposed to be funny. Like, you have someone in the apocalypse speaking like there's some, I don't know. I feel like you would only hear something like that from like a 90-year-old woman, a 90-year-old Southern woman, because yeah, I don't know. I couldn't get that out of my head. Like, sweet syrup on a short stack. You're in Mississippi? Like, and I'm sorry for my my Southern accent. That was bad. But that woman, we actually find out, well, we don't really find out what happened to that woman, because when you first meet Sarah and Wendell, you think Sarah was the woman on the radio, but you find out that they have no idea what's going on. They stole the truck. And what the woman on the radio tells Morgan is she repeats what was on that box that June and Althea found. Take what you need, leave what you don't, and I'll be there whenever. So this is when, like, Morgan, they have running water in this truck stop, in this Quickie Mart. They have running water. They have electricity. They like have everything that you would need. I don't know why anybody would leave here. Like, this is where I would be staying in the apocalypse. Like, give me water, give me electricity, and give me some food, and I'm good. I'm not looking for any. I'm a terrible person, because I wouldn't be out looking to help anybody else. I would just be keeping my shit all to myself. I would basically be Father Gabriel. Oh my God, I'm a terrible person. But I would be Father Gabriel. I mean, no, because he wouldn't let anybody in. I would let people in. I just wouldn't let too many people in. Whatever. Let me stop talking about how horrible I would be in the apocalypse. But that's what Morgan does. He takes what he needs, and he finds some peanut butter protein bars, because Morgan always needs peanut butter protein bars. He drinks coffee, I'm guessing for the first time in a while, because my dude he drank that coffee. It was like black coffee, and he drank it, and it was almost like an orgasm. He smiled, and it was like not that much. I don't even get that. I don't drink coffee, so I don't understand the love of it. It makes me want to gag. But Morgan gets caught on the toilet. Wendell catches him on the toilet. He goes into the biggest stall, which happens to be the one for people in wheelchairs, or the one for disabled people. And he like, Morgan is like really, like, Lenny James really went for it. He's sitting on that toilet. I was so grossed out when he sat down on the toilet. I'm so dead if there's ever really an apocalypse, because I was looking at Morgan sat down on that toilet, and I was like, oh my God, what the fuck is he doing sitting down on a toilet? That's like a public toilet. And this was actually going through my mind. So I am so dead in the apocalypse, because I'm like, I would never sit down. Like, even in the apocalypse, I would be like really I would be really, I would be so grossed out that I couldn't even sit down on on the toilet. Oh my God, I'm so dead in the apocalypse. So it wouldn't even matter how mean I am, how terrible a person I am, because I would never survive. Like they would say, somebody would, you just put me on a toilet. I'd be like, no, put me out of my misery. Shoot me in the head right now. I cannot do a public toilet with like even in the Z-Poc. So he's talking to Wendell, and they have a back and forth. There's a back and forth between Wendell and Morgan, and they're both trying to get information out of each other. Wendell has like this big shotgun that he's always holding on everybody. Like he has that shotgun aimed at Morgan for most of this episode. Like he has to be Sarah has to like tell him like, yo, Wendell, put down the shotgun. We're safe here. We don't need the shotgun right now. But I get it. Wendell's not about that life. And I respect him. He he has like leg guards on his wheelchair, like plastic leg guards on his wheelchair, to protect him just in case the zombie falls near his legs or something. So, that's good. But yeah, I really got a lot of questions about how Wendell has survived. I can't get over it. So, another problem with this is that Morgan spends most of this episode struggling about whether he should go to Virginia or go back to Texas for the rest of the group. And it's a lot of struggle for something that I never thought would happen. I mean, they go back and forth. They try to make you think. And at one point, Morgan does say that he's going to Virginia. Like he turns away from Texas to go to Virginia. But I never, ever once felt like it was the final decision. I never felt like Morgan, like I already know that Morgan is not going back to Alexandria. So this struggle it just seems like a waste of time. It is a waste of time. It just never feels like a real decision that needs to be made, because the decision is already made. He's on Fear the Walking Dead. He is not going back to Alexandria, at least not anytime soon. They may do another crossover, but it's not going to be this season of Fear the Walking Dead or next season of The Walking Dead. So this is just it's not a real decision. It's a decision that's already made, and I'm watching someone struggle with a decision that I already know is made. So, and maybe some of that is my fault because I have outside information, but I don't know. I'm perfectly willing to blame myself for knowing outside information, for reading articles and listening to other podcasts. But I don't know. It just seems like even if I didn't read that article about, why Morgan was actually on Fear the Walking Dead, I feel like I would already, I don't know, whatever. I'm going to get off of this. So Morgan meets up with Jim, I'm about to call him Jimbo. Jim, because Jim is running across the field he has been kidnapped, basically. He's escaped from his kidnappers. His head is covered with a sack. His arms are tied behind his back, and Morgan saves him. And we find out that Jim is brews beer. He's a home brewer, or maybe not even a home brewer. Maybe he has something bigger. He was kind of annoying to me because his whole thing is that he was going on this like long diatribe about how society is built on beer. Dude, I couldn't even, like, I recognized this guy from something, but I was like too annoyed to even look it up. So I recognize the guy that plays Jim from something else. I don't know where he's from, but he's, he's annoying. He's another one of these people that exist in this Walking Dead universe who has been alive in this world for a long time, but has almost no experience with zombies. Like, he's been shut up in his like brewery for the last 4 years, I guess. However long it's been, at least according to him, he's been shut off in his brewery. He so I don't know. He's the Tara of this season. I'm annoyed. Like, the more I think about it, the more annoyed I'm getting, because he's the Tara. Like, Tara and her sister not knowing how to kill zombies, like not understanding that you have to shoot them in the head, or, you have to hit them in the head was annoying to me back then. But I was like, okay, it hasn't been that long, so I'm willing to put up with this. But it's been 4 years here, and I just don't believe this guy has been locked in his brewery for 4 years. Just brewing beer for the last 4 years, like doing nothing else. Like, I don't know, just whatever. I'm starting to get mad. So eventually Morgan and Jim meet up again with Wendell and Sarah, and you find out that Wendell and Sarah are the people that Jim escaped from. So they end up taking Jim and Morgan hostage at the end of this, because they want Jim's beer because it's like ambrosia or something like that, and it builds societies and cities, and he Aztecs and Incas and all this bullshit. And he's a real punk, because he flipped almost immediately. Like, he couldn't deal with anything. They're like, okay, Jimbo, brew us some beer, and we'll let you out of your chains and you can be like with us. And he's like, oh, okay. Just like immediately. And he's trying to get Morgan to tell them where Alexandria is, because Morgan asked them to drive him to Alexandria, but now they're, trying to get the information out of him, kidnapping him to get the information out of him, because, I don't know, they're terrible people. I don't know. They're not even that bad though. I never felt like Morgan was in any real danger. I never felt like that they would actually shoot Morgan, because they seem kind of incompetent. Well, not really incompetent, they're taking care of themselves, but it's just, I don't know. They're not, I just never see them as people that are about that life. So I never felt like Jim or Morgan were in danger. And I don't think Morgan felt like he was in danger from them either, because, he's crazy and he can handle himself. And I was almost thinking like, yeah, Morgan, give these two idiots the location of Alexandria and see what happens when they get there. Richard Grimes is not putting up with any of their bullshit. They would be dead so quick if they tried to roll up into Alexandria with their nickname bullshit. It would just, whatever. Let me move on from here. So they hit a speed bump. Not literally a speed bump, but they hit a point in the road where they have to start emptying the truck. And in order to drive over a bridge, because the truck is too heavy. And Jim is not only annoying, but he's also a klutz. And my dude trips and ends up pushing Morgan down like a hill into a small herd of zombies. And oh my God, Morgan's hands are tied. He ends up standing up on top of like this minivan that's and he gets surrounded by zombies, and they're like the three of them are looking down at him. He's like in a ravine or something like that, and they're looking at him like, oh shit. Morgan is like begging for help, and none of them want to help him. So Morgan is like standing on top of this truck. He's completely surrounded by zombies. And he's like, can one of you please, can you please help me? I'll tell you. They're like, this is where Sarah tries, negotiates with him. Like, hey, tell us where this place is in Virginia and we'll come down and help you. And Morgan, gives them fake directions and location and everything. And Sarah gets off of the radio and she's like, okay, so which one of us is going to go down there and help him? And this is when they're all three like looking at him on the bridge. And Jim is like, well, I'm useless. I've been in this brewery for 4 years. Wendell's like, look at me in this wheelchair, girl. I can't help anybody. And this is when she's like, oh, well, sorry, Morgan. You've survived all this time by yourself. You don't need us. You'll be okay. And they just leave him there. I died when that happened, when they were all just like, should we like pull straws or something to see if we're going to help him? And then just saying, no, we're not going to help you. But this is when shit starts blowing up in Morgan's face, because earlier in the episode, they gave him a car and they gave him supplies, and because he told them that he was going back to Texas to help the people that he had left there in Texas. After he heard about, how bad the storm was. And apparently the hurricane was so bad, roads flooded. There was like, there were just a whole lot of damage, a whole lot of shit happened. And so he wants to go back to get them. And they give him directions. They mapped out everything. They know all the clear roads. So they told him where the clear roads were. And he got to a bridge and he called them back on the radio. Like, Morgan started hearing voices. This is the first time we get like conflicted Morgan that was conflicted or, trying to make this decision about which way he should go. And he starts hearing the voices of John Dory and Luciana and, all the others in his head. And when he starts hearing those voices, this is when he turns around and he says, he's like, forget it. I'm going to Virginia. I can't deal with this. And he calls them back on the radio, Wendell and Sarah, and tells them and lies about the bridge being, he can't go across the bridge. Something's wrong with the bridge. And so when he's standing on top of that truck, this is when Sarah brings it up to him like, yo, dude, we know you lied about the bridge. We know these roads better than anybody else. You said you were going to go back to help the people, your friends, and you didn't do it. So, we're not the only ones out here lying about shit. You're doing it too. So she chucks up the deuces and they leave him. And so eventually Morgan, they have walkie-talkies, and these are some real long range walkie-talkies, because these people say they drive away and they tell Morgan that they drove 200 miles before they figured out he gave them bad directions. But it was daytime when all this happened. He's sitting on top of the truck. It's nighttime now. He he's still surrounded by zombies, and he calls them on the radio and he tells them that he confesses to being a coward, and he tells them he thought he could help them, meaning Alicia and the rest of the group. And he got scared that he would make things worse because he thought they needed something that he couldn't give them. And, nice moment for Morgan. I guess it doesn't even really change their mind, because it's what convinces Morgan that he has to be proactive. So this is when what I called Morgiver comes out, and he starts kicking the zombies in the head. He jumps up onto like the dirt. He really was Morgiver, because you see him looking around of all the shit that's around that he can like use to help himself. And he sees a sign, like the mile marker sign, and he jumps over. He unties his hands because there was one of those the care package boxes was there, and it had a knife in it. So he cut the ties off his wrists, and he picks up the sign, and he starts killing all the zombies. And he calls them back on the radio and tells them that basically that he helped himself and that he's going to help other people and blah, blah, blah. Morganing all over everything. So he eventually meets back up with them in person, and he tells them he's still talking about going back to Virginia, but he tells them, you're going to take me back to Texas to pick up my friends, to help find my friends. And once we do that, we'll go back to, I'll give you the directions and we can all go to Virginia. This is never going to happen. So, and another thing we find out about Wendell and Sarah, that they stole the truck, that they aren't the people that are putting out the boxes at the mile markers, but that the guy that was putting out the boxes was being really obvious about it. So he was putting them at all the mile markers that end in 4. And they basically just stole his shit, stole his truck, stole, everything from him, and left him with the box, the take what you need, leave what you don't boxes. And they left them in Texas somewhere. And they were telling Morgan, like, yo, he's being wasteful. Like, he's leaving these boxes out in the street for anybody to take them. They're rotting. Everything is rotting away. Like, we're getting more use out of it than he was. He's being a wasteful dick. And Morgan is like, no, he's not being wasteful. He's helping to save people. That's what we all need to be doing. Blah. It's basic Morgan shit. And this is part of what he wants them to do. He wants them to do what the guy was doing, to put out the boxes at the mile markers. And and this is what we see. We see them making all these stops to put out the boxes and everything, because Wendell and Sarah have been like chastised like children. So they're basically Morgan is the leader of them now. Because he has the directions to Alexandria, I guess. Like they don't even know. Like, all Morgan said about it was that he knew of a place where people were trying to rebuild society. They don't know dick else about this place. That's all they know is what that little piece of information that Morgan gave them. And they are just really pressed about going to Virginia now. He didn't even say the name of Alexandria. They just know, it's in Virginia. They're really pressed about going there though. So whatever. They're never going. I feel like I keep having to repeat that. They're never going there. So this is more about this is more shit that doesn't matter. But Morgan does a very very Alicia-like thing. So while they're doing this, going through, Morgan is talking on the CB radio, telling whoever is out there listening, the lady that called out for Polar Bear earlier in the episode, telling her, we're putting out the food. We're sorry we took your stuff, but we're helping the way that you would, and we're coming back to Texas. And it's like, Morgan, you were talking over an open radio. You're giving out way too much information. Don't be Alicia. Oh my God. And he's not getting any answer back. He's just talking out into, the atmosphere. And somebody is listening. The woman that's going to be, I guess, the new villain on the show. She's a Black woman. She's super crazy. She's dirty. Her face, I don't know whether her face is just dirty or whether she has scars all over her face, but the chick has a zombie pinned to the wall, and she's writing on his face, take what you need, leave what you don't. And, she's laughing, talking about how she's going to Texas, and she is a nut. That woman is crazy. So she's the new villain. I don't know how many more people she has. She has her and her zombie. Who the hell knows what's going on with her? So Morgan is being Morgan, being a little too trusting. You don't put your information out there like that, my dude. This is what's going to cause conflict. And that was basically the end of the episode, that woman. So next week, I'm hoping we get more than just, one or two people. I need some of this to start moving, because I'm getting bored. I'm already I'm not going to quit the show right now, because I said that I would continue on to the end of the season, but I was not excited about doing this episode. I was really I got a few laughs out of the things that were happening, but I did not think that this was a great episode. So I want to see more John Dory. He's the star to me. So hopefully he'll be in the next episode. I didn't see the scenes from next week, so maybe they showed him and I just, I didn't see that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, John Dory will be in the next episode. John Dory and Strand. I want to see some more of that. So that is the end of the episode, you guys. You should follow me on the socials, because I'm very active over there, especially when I'm live tweeting, and I live tweet this show every week. So follow me on Twitter at NerdTravertPod. Use the hashtag NerdyWatch so you can live tweet and chat with me. On Instagram at The Introverted Nerd, and like the Facebook page at facebook.com/The Introverted Nerd. And if you want to send me feedback about this show, or anything else, send it to theintrovertednerd@gmail.com. I answer all emails. I read all of them. So, do that. Follow me, tweet me, love me, adore me. And I will talk to you later in the week with Saved by the Bell. So, bye.